Hey everybody, Whitney LaBrie here, and behind me is a wall in my house that I've dedicated to all things travel. Now, about 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to take a month off and travel many states in the United States. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it was really amazing. As you do when you travel, you pick up souvenirs, and of course, with my obsession, most of my souvenirs are miniatures. Many of the miniature souvenirs that I have are actually dioramas that hang on the wall, which I love because they don't take up that much space. Now, all the ones that I currently have were bought, but what I'd like to do is start making additional wall dioramas to represent other locations that I've been and loved. Now, one of my favorite states that I had the opportunity to visit during that month-long trip was Tennessee. I loved the people, I loved the music, I loved the food. And so I thought it would be super fun to start with Tennessee today because I bought a lot of really fun miniature guitars and I'd like to go ahead and showcase them on today's diorama. And this is the space that we're gonna dedicate to Tennessee. As far as the concept of this actual build, I would like it, of course, to be quite thin because it's going to go on the wall. It needs to be fairly light as well, but I want it to represent both of the main cities that I visited, which was Memphis and then also Nashville. The main building materials that I really noticed for both Beale Street and Broadway Street, which are the two main drags in Memphis and also Nashville, is brick buildings. And the interior of most of the restaurants and clubs that we went into also exposed their raw brick on the interior of the buildings, which I actually really love. And so while I've already done a brick project when I was doing the abandoned toy shop, I didn't really want to do two brick projects right in a row, but it just kind of worked out that way. But to give a quick recap of fast brick work, especially when you're trying to accomplish the look of older bricks, what I did in this case was this. I took a piece of foam board and I measured it out and cut it down to the size that I want for this particular wall diorama. Then I traced that out onto a piece of wax paper. So when I was using my clay, I would know how much I needed and I would just use that as my guidelines. Then what I began to do was roll out my clay in small sections. And then once I had the clay in the size and also the width that I wanted, I took my brick roller here that I bought on Etsy quite some time ago, and then I just rolled out my brickwork. And in this case, again, I'm making it look older, so I'm not as concerned about it being perfect. I want it to be somewhat straight, but it doesn't need to be perfect. And then once I did that, I let the clay sit for a little while. It doesn't need to be fully dry. After I completely rolled out my bricks onto the sheet, I did transfer the bricks over to my foam board. Now I like to add a little adhesive to the back of my foam board, and I always use my Ultimate Crafter's white glue, and I just smear that all over my foam board, and then I will go ahead and transfer the bricks over to my wall. Now in this case, I'm gonna make it look like there was some stucco or plaster covering some of the bricks still that had not chipped away over time, and so I am kind of ripping my clay bricks over as I'm transferring them over to the board. And where they're broken is where I'll be adding my additional clay to make it look like it has plaster or stucco on the wall. I am making sure that I'm wrapping the bricks around the edges of 3 of the sides, the top and the 2 sides, so that from the side view, of course, it'll look like there are bricks. I'm not wrapping it on the base because I'm going to add a little bit of a lip there, and so I don't want my bricks to wrap around the bottom because I want to be able to add the floorboard flush to the brick area. And here's what it looks like before it begins to dry. Now, the drying process took a little bit longer than it would normally have because I did put a book on top of the project to keep the foam board and clay as flat as possible during the drying process, so not to warp the foam board. But it did warp a little, but not enough for me to be concerned about the overall look of the project. So moving forward, I wanted to go ahead and paint my bricks. Now that the bricks are all dry, I'm going to take a combination of my Barn Red and my Espresso Brown. I will be dry brushing on the paint with my fan brush. Now, of course, I'm not painting the plaster area. I'm going to try to avoid it anyway. but even if I get a little bit on the plaster areas, it's okay because I'm going to paint over it anyway. And then I will let that completely dry before moving on to the next coat, which is just taking a little warm white and brushing it right on over the plaster. And I'm not fully painting over all of the clay because I do want a little bit of that regular raw clay to kind of peek through a little bit. It'll add a couple nice shades of color, and it'll look really, really good once we add all the additional accessories to the wall. The other thing that I noticed both in Memphis and in Nashville is that they had a large amount of really cool murals. I really love murals. I love a story behind them. And if I had to be really honest, a lot of graffiti that I see also is pretty beautiful works of art. But one of the coolest murals that I saw were these very famous, you've probably seen them yourself, these angel wings by Kelsey Montague. And so I thought that we would do a little bit of a nod to Kelsey's art by doing some wings on this wall. So what I did was I stenciled out a couple wing shape from a piece of computer paper basically, and that's just so both wings will be the same shape and that I don't mess them up. So I also bought these acrylic paint pens, and I've been dying to use them, and so I thought that this would be a really good project to finally pull these bad boys out and test them out. All right, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of put the wings on an angle, and then I'm just going to start filling them in with this pen. And the pen was okay. It wasn't really too bad. A part of me, I think I had a little bit of a challenge because I'm drawing on these bricks, so that it wasn't a really even surface. But I think overall they turned out okay, pretty fun. And I was gonna do a little KM next to it, just as a nod again to Kelsey's work. But then I decided not to because I don't think Kelsey would be super happy with these wings. They're definitely not as cool. All right. The other thing that I purchased from Amazon actually were all these Tennessee stickers. I want to choose a couple really cool ones to kind of put on the back wall here. I want to choose the ones that really stand out to me, ones that I can cut down because they all kind of have a little bit of a white trim around them, and I don't want to have that trim, so I'm going to cut that down. Now again, I'm creating a wall that would be more like on the interior of like a club or a restaurant, but I'm just wanting it to have some elements that you might see also when you were just walk around down the streets. I'm going back and forth. There were so many that I want to use as many as I can, but within reason, because obviously I don't want to overdo it either. So I'm thinking maybe 4 or 5. So I'm going to start with these. So I got this really cool Nashville one, a Music City one. Once I've added them to the wall, they look a little too new and I want to rough them up a little bit. So I'm just going to take a medium sandpaper here and I'm just going to sand them down a little bit. Try not to hit the wall, but if I do, it's really okay. It actually make it look even better. All right, so I've added about 4. I think that's good enough. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and add the lip to the bottom. Now I'm using foam board again as the base, and then I have some of this scrapbook paper that looks like wood planking. This is perfect because again, I don't want that lip to be very heavy, and anything that I place on it, I want it to be pretty light, and I'm also going to maybe glue it to the wall also so that the wall is carrying more of the weight versus the lip, if that makes sense. So I'll just go ahead and cover that and also the bottom. So if you looked up from the base, it would have a cleaner look to it. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that to the bottom and let it set and dry. Now on the back, I have added an additional piece of foam board. This is because I need to have additional support, but also I need an area where I could add some hanging hooks so that we can, of course, hang this on the wall. So I've purchased these little hooks. I thought it was just getting a couple of them, but it wound up being like a full bag of them, which I think will be good because if I do a whole bunch of these, I'll already have some supplies on hand. So I measure from the bottom up because the top is, I don't think, as even as it probably should be. So this will make sure that they are in the right spot. Now, obviously, screwing nails into foam board is not going to last or work really well. So I did use super glue as I screwed them into the foam board, and then of course fully let that dry. And actually it's very sturdy. I was a little concerned about that, but actually it wound up being very sturdy, so I am pleasantly surprised, let's say. Okay, so let's start off by adding a couple of accessories here to the lip portion or the floorboard of my club wall here / restaurant wall. So this of course is a keyboard. I've had this keyboard for a really long time. This wasn't something that I picked up as a souvenir. It is a ornament, however. You can still kind of see that it has a little tinsel on the side, so I'll go ahead and remove that and we will go ahead and put that on the lip. I also have this regular acoustic guitar. Acoustic guitars, of course, are played by hundreds of different musicians. And so I'm going to go ahead and place that here near the keyboard. All of the guitars that you'll see here today are magnets that I did pick up as souvenirs in both Memphis and Nashville. Here are a couple speakers. These are left over from a Town Square miniature radio / record set that I had. That was broken a long time ago, but I kept the speaker, so I'm going to add that. And then I have this really cool old school microphone right here. And really I think of radio when I see this, but certainly music. It's pretty cool little piece. It's actually a right guide miniature, so I'm going to use that in this application also. And then I do have a little classics records. These records are a little bit smaller, so I'm going to guess that these are more like 45s versus a 12-inch LP. So I will go ahead and maybe place those around, like kind of confetti them in on the base. They're pretty light as well. This guitar right here is called a resonator guitar, and some famous artists that use this one would be Eric Clapton, Ray Davies, Melissa Etheridge, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Bob Marley, just to name a few. This, of course, is a banjo. Artists using this are people like Ashley Campbell, Keith Urban, and Zach Brown. Now, this one here, this is actually a hollow body guitar. I have 2 of those. The hollow body guitar, a couple of famous people that notoriously played this were B.B. King, Ted Nugent, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Dave Grohl. And now I have gone ahead and I've adhered all of my guitars and equipment to my wall, and I have used super glue to do that. Now I am leaving a little bit of space here on the wall because I really want to make or find an amp. I've left a little space near the keyboard for that, and maybe a few other little things too. So basically it's done. The only additional thing that I really want to do is add some lighting. If you go down either one of these main drags in the evening, you will find tons of neon signage just all the way down the street. It looks so cool, so fun, and also the same with the interior of a lot of the clubs and restaurants. So I did get online and I found this little set of fairy lights in this neon purple color, and what I'm going to do is just wrap it around the back to kind of backlight this entire piece, and I will cut out just a little notch in the foam board at the base so that I can easily adhere the battery pack and then just flip on and off the lights once it's hung on the wall. So let me go ahead and do that, and you can see it's already kind of illuminating from the back. You can see it on my hand. Let me just turn the light off to give us a little bit so you can kind of see how that's going to look. And then basically I'm done, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and hang it on the wall where I want it to go. I'll turn the light on here so you can see that this is the finished product right here. Again, just leaving space. I do that with a lot of my projects, if not all of them, where I leave a little bit of room for additions, you know, as I go along, and I treasure collect that I have a space for those items. So here it is, you guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this quick, kind of easy project, really. But again, I really love it because it didn't really take up much space. And so I want to do several of these for several different states and actually some other countries too along the way. So that's it. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this project. And then next Wednesday, I have a really big haul show coming up on my What's New Wednesday. And then after that, I am still working on the Back to the Future garage. And then I have another special little project planned for the dollhouse. I'm getting back over to the Garfield dollhouse, and I'm going to be doing hopefully a really cool project for the backyard. So if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so you don't miss any more content. Don't forget to like this video and comment. Both of those things help my channel immensely. Thank you to all the new subscribers who have recently come on board. I'm so happy to have you, and to all of my other subscribers who have been with me since the beginning. Your support has been amazing, and I couldn't have gotten this far without you. So thank you so much, you guys. Again, always love hanging out with you. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you soon. Bye.